Good morning, everyone. Thomas Hill here with CD Technology. It is right almost at 9 o'clock, another 30 seconds or so. We're going to give everybody a few more minutes to jump into the attendee room here for us to before we get started. Everybody is still getting their coffee this morning. I see several of my customers on here this morning, and I appreciate y'all. Jake McCarter from Oak Haven Resort out here in Sevierville. Good to see you this morning, Jake. Let's see, we also got Jason Cardwell on here. Let's see here. Who else is on here, and where are you from? Why don't you go ahead and post that into the attendee chat if you would, to just kind of say good morning and where you're coming from. Come on now, where's everybody else from? I don't recognize everyone's names. All right, well, while you all get some courage this morning, I've got Marcus Blair with us from Omega Digital. We're very excited to speak with him this morning on AI and how it's going to affect our sales process going forward. Marcus, why don't you tell us just a little bit about your company and what it is that you do?
Well, thanks for having me. Really appreciate you putting this together. So I'm Marcus. I founded Omega Digital about 4 years ago. And the main problem that we try to solve has to do with digital projects. So according to McKinsey and Gartner, almost 75 or 80% of all digital projects fail. And this includes optimization. This includes, getting a new platform, new ERP system, accounting, whatever. All these digital projects have a very low success rate. And this is due to a variety of factors: lack of vision, executive sponsorship, several other things that play into that. So what we work with small to medium sized businesses to help them get the most out of their technology when they're starting these digital projects. So we can do it, come in and consult on what you have right now. Sometimes we build new software and that sort of thing, but in a in a very predictable sort of way, it's all about knowing your process. And we spend a lot of time on process design and knowing exactly how the data moves and what people need to interact with it at what points, and then starting from there. That's really what we feel is the single biggest contributor to all those projects fail.
Okay. Well, we're really excited to have you on our webinar this month. And as I mentioned before, we met Marcus through one of our customers, and he has since worked with some of our other customers with great success. And so we really appreciate the experience that he brings to basically make us. If you had to kind of sum it up in one word, is what you do just kind of make us more efficient? Is that kind of your goal?
That's ultimately the goal is efficiency gain. So either faster, cheaper, and better all the way around.
Okay, awesome. All right, well, with no more to do, let's go ahead and jump into it then. If you want to go ahead and share your screen, and I'll let you kind of take over from here.
Okay, so thank you for that introduction. Share my screen. Okay, you should now be able to see my screen. It's the title slide that says how to stop AI from killing your sales.
Yep.
Thomas, you can see it? Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started. Of course, AI is the new shiny object in the tech world ever since ChatGPT went live, I guess, 16 months ago now. It raced to 100 million users, and then suddenly all of these Gen AI products started to pop up, and they're all intended to do something different. And it's impossible to read the tea leaves at this point and try to predict where AI is going to lead technology. it is safe to say it'll be the largest revolution in technology, at least since the internet, if not since the personal computer itself. In today's webinar, we're only going to talk about one thing, and that's going to be search. And we'll look at this from three parts. Number one is going to be how search has worked up to this point. Two, the problems with that. And then three is going to be how you can adjust for this coming paradigm shift. And I'm going to give you the key takeaway right now in the very first part of the presentation. So AI-powered search, which Perplexity is the leading one right now. SGE is called Search Generative Experience. That is a Google product, actually. But AI-powered search will change search. Keyword ranking importance will drop. Information quality will matter more. This paradigm shift will cost traffic and ultimately sales to sites that don't adjust accordingly. So everything that follows this slide is going to explain these steps in more detail. Now, usually whenever I give webinars, I love to interact with the audience. So please post questions or comments into the chat. And that way, because if we get several questions along the same line, then I'll try to tailor the presentation toward the feedback that I get. So
Yeah, I'll be watching the chat, and as soon as I see something pop up in the chat, I'll let you know if there's a question. Okay.
Okay, perfect. So I already introduced myself a little bit. My name is Marcus Blair. I founded Omega Digital Solutions a few years ago. You can find me. My username is Marcus at Omega. My main platform is LinkedIn, but I just ventured onto Twitter. I'm not even sure why I did that. I was just bored in a hotel room one day and I ventured onto Twitter. And you can also find me on Reddit if you're interested in more content. So part one, how search currently works and how we got here. Now, Google search is not a complicated process, and it really hasn't changed all that much. So if you think way back to, the land before time, way back in the 90s, I remember the first time that I used Google search. I was a junior in high school, and so that would have been 1998. And we had to go to the library because that's where all the encyclopedias were. And part of us broke off. We went to the computer lab and we started searching the internet to find answers to questions. And this was just a social studies assignment, stuff like where was Abraham Lincoln from, stuff like that. But it took forever. And there just wasn't that much content out there then. You're talking a long time ago. So the internet has come a long, long way, but this process hasn't really changed that much. So Google crawls the web, it downloads text, images, videos, and it crams it all into this database called the Google Index. It assigns it ranks based on its relevance to a certain query. So when Google's out searching for, when it's crawling the web and it's coming across pages on cooking and gardening and all of these different things, it looks for the keywords on that page and in the meta fields and all these different parameters that it has to approximate the relevance. That's the word I'm looking for. Approximate the relevance to your query. So if you have a query that's like, why do onions make you cry? Well, then Google's going to go through its database and it's going to look for everything it has about crying and onions and match your query to whatever it has in its index. So the next thing that happens is the amount of traffic that Google generates. It has billions of searches per day, and it's been doing this for years and years and years. It is the largest database of information probably in existence when it comes to consumer interactions and consumer questions. It is responsible for almost 65% of all North American web traffic, 92% of global traffic, and it's visited more than Facebook, Instagram, Twitter combined, which is just an enormous amount of traffic when you stop to think about it. And it really starts to put into perspective just how big Google Index is, because it has been doing this for the past 26, 27 years. And it's just a massive, massive amount of information. So that when you go to Google and you query that database, it is pulling from a lot of data. But the key thing to remember here is that you are querying a database. It is a finite amount of information, even though it's the scale of it is hard to imagine. But you are querying a finite amount of information, and it is making a quantitative link between what you're asking for and what it has. Now, Google's methods of doing this have become much more sophisticated, obviously, since the late 90s when it first started. But the finite limits are still there. It's limited by what's in its database, and the basic process still hasn't changed. Furthermore, they've got locked into this process more and more because of their ad business changing the way that this works. It's not that Google isn't capable of it, but it would have a very real impact to their bottom line, to their shareholders, to their revenue, all of these types of things. So they took search so far, but then the next evolution of it, they're a bit constrained, and we'll come back to that later. So whenever people go to Google, there's three types of searches primarily. There's navigational, where someone goes in and you open up Chrome, it goes to Google, and someone types in Facebook, or they type in YouTube or whatever, and that domain pops up, and then they click it and they go to that site. That's a navigational search. There's informational, where someone is looking for information on a specific topic, like how do I change a tire. So that's where the keyword ranking really plays a lot to do with informational searches. This is why people post blogs on their website, and they're all trying to build authority. They're trying to get other sites to use the content that they've produced, because that helps Google, that helps you move up the ranking, so that Google thinks, okay, this is an authoritative website. They know what they're talking about. I'm going to recommend them more and more to more people. This is the type of search that is the most vulnerable to the AI disruption that we'll talk about later. Excuse me. The last type of query is transactional. So that's when you're buying something. You go to Google and you type in Air Jordan 13s or Monday.com reviews or HubSpot or PC or whatever it is, and you get a list of products and things that you can click and buy. Now, the navigational searches won't come under too much pressure from AI powered search, and the transactional, that may or may not. I probably TBD is the best way to think about that. But the informational ones, that's where you want to be careful, especially for a lot of B2B businesses, like for a company like mine. We will create content around, well, content like this webinar. We'll take this webinar, we'll post it on our website, we'll toss up a landing page and say, hey, we did this thing about how AI search is going to disrupt website traffic. And our goal in doing that is to get people to visit our site, so that if they go to Google and they type in a query, how will AI search impact my website traffic? We want to pop up on the first page. They click us, they say, oh, I like this, and that made a lot of sense. Really glad they put that out there, and eventually they buy something. So that process is what really underpins SEO in the B2B world. SEO has turned into, it's an entire industry now, especially in between 2000 and 2010, or you could probably stretch it all the way to 2012 or 2013. If you had a website, especially a retail website where you're selling widgets out of your basement or whatever, and you were effective at SEO, you get on the first page of Google, it was almost a guarantee to put two commas in your business. Because people would go to Google, they would search for something, you'd be on the first page, they'd click your link, and then they would buy something from you. And it's been extremely effective, um, but the efficacy of it is starting to wear down, and the methods that made it so effective are also starting to wear down. The typical things you see, keywords, content creation, backlinks is something else that Google puts a lot of weight on. Which there's actually some information that came out in their antitrust trial just 2 months ago that specifically talks about links and how Google interacts with those. But um, so with SEO, the way it is right now and the way that it's moving, with the impact that AI will have on it, the uh, the search will generate much more, or the search will be much more controlled by the quality of the information and not by just the number of times. So if you have a sample search, like we mentioned gardening before, or why do onions make you cry, something like that. It won't be the number of times that the word onion appears on the website. That's not going to help you rank higher in the future. So the problem now that we're coming up with is Google has sold so many ads that if you have a search, it's flooded. The top part of the page is flooded with ads. You'll get a few organic results, and then there's even more ads after that. The results have become very, very sketchy. I don't know in your personal experience if you've ever put something into Google and you just end up bouncing back and forth from one blog to another blog to another blog to another blog, and you're trying to find a certain piece of information, but the quality of the information that you're getting is just not there. So once marketers figured out the algorithm, which still changes, but once they've started working with the algorithm and they can just spam those results, they'll, keyword stuffing is one thing that happens where they'll just take a keyword, they'll shove it into the website, hundreds of times with the goal of jumping up the rankings to drive more traffic to their site, which is good for the site because they get more traffic. That's the goal. But the bad thing about it is, for us, the user, we don't get the information that we're looking for. And Google has received some backlash for this, especially over the last 5 to 7 years, I would say. Google is dead has trended 3 times since 2019. And there was a separate instance where people would type in whatever query you were searching for, and then they would just tack the word Reddit onto the end of it, because Reddit had grown big enough where you would have all this available information. And if you found a Reddit thread that had the information you were looking for in it, then it would just pop up and you could get the information without having to go through all of these all of these other blog posts, all these other sites, and all of these other things. It was just a much quicker way to get the information that you were looking for. I think I saw a question pop up.
I don't think so. At least I'm not seeing one.
No, okay.
We've had some new people enter the attendee area here, so maybe that's what you saw.
Okay. So this is basically the introduction. And now I want to make sure that we have a couple of disclaimers before we start talking about how AI search actually works. We are going to talk of traditional Google search and AI powered search as two distinctly different things, just for simplicity, but they are not two distinct different things. There is a little bit of overlap there. Google has used AI, specifically an algorithm called RankBrain, under the hood of Google for years, since at least 2015 or 2016. We don't see that as the user because, as I mentioned before, the process of how it works and how it serves up results, that hasn't changed in 20 some years. The main way that Google has used AI in the traditional search is to analyze user intent. So to try to get a better idea of what you're actually asking for. The second thing I want to mention is I spend a lot of time kind of knocking Google and how how things have degenerated over the last 5 years or 7 years or so. They've tried to take steps to mitigate the spammy blogs and the keyword stuffing and basically the unethical marketing tactics that people have used to jump up the Google index to try to steal traffic from more we'll call it more complete websites. The most recent was a March 2024 update, and their goal with that update was to reduce low quality content by 40%. After ChatGPT and all these other LLMs hit the market, there was, of course, an explosion of content creation. And with people using, you could go to YouTube and search right now, and you can find videos where people say, "Oh, create an entire course on some topic in 45 minutes or a day or whatever," and they're using these Gen AI models to just create content, and they're doing it at scale. And there have been some instances where people have created hundreds or thousands of blog posts and pieces of content and put it on their website. So Google is actively taking steps to try to mitigate that. It is an uphill battle for them, especially because they're releasing their own AI models. They're like Gemini now. So on one side, they're kind of adding to the problem, and then they're also trying to fight the problem as well. And then
So,
last,
so quick question. So, is it really a problem though if it's useful information, or are you just saying that it's a problem because the AI generated information is not as useful?
it's a problem in that the best quality information is generated by a human and it's intended to be read by a human. AI generated content is not in itself inherently bad, although every AI out there, whether you use Gemini or ChatGPT, they all have warnings across the bottom that say they can hallucinate and they can give you bad information. But that doesn't mean it's bad to use it for content creation. It's just it's not generally the same quality as what a human would create. And just as an experiment, sometime I don't we're not going to have time to do it right now. But just as an experiment, go to the AI, the Gen AI of your choice, whether it's Gemini or ChatGPT or Perplexity or whatever, and tell it to write a 5 paragraph essay on the history of coffee or just the history of the automobile. Just choose a random topic. Almost every time, the last paragraph is going to start with "in conclusion" or "in summary" or "to wrap up" or something like that. No human writes like that after they're a sophomore in high school. Okay, no human does that. And if you look at it, it will be factually accurate, especially on a topic where there's as much information as like coffee or automobiles or something. But it's not going to have the human touch to it because a human didn't write it. Now that statement could age very badly. Was it yesterday? OpenAI released a new model of ChatGPT, which is supposed to be more emotive. I haven't personally tried it yet, but at the pace the technology is moving, perhaps AI generated content will start to mimic closer what a human would write. But as of this moment in time, 9:30 in the morning on May 14th, 2024, we're not quite there yet.
Okay.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about how AI search works. The first two steps are basically the same. The web gets indexed, and then the results get put into a database. The third step is where the big difference is. When you, as we mentioned before, when you search in Google, you're querying their database. Oh, went too far There you go. When you search in Google, you're querying their database, and they are using these quantitative metrics, keywords and all these other things, to match your query with a web page. When you use AI powered search, it uses the training that it has and the data from those web pages to generate a response. It's not matching, it's taking the data it has available and answering your question with it. So, on the plus side, it's very good at understanding nuance, of course, in your question. Like an AI would understand the difference in the words jog and sprint, for instance. But on the downside, there's not necessarily a guarantee that two people are going to get the exact same answer every time. So there could be a little bit of variation there. But the fact that it's actually dynamically generating a response instead of just using a matching exercise, that is what makes it so much more powerful for informational searches. Now, I referenced earlier Google's information, or some information about Google that came out during their antitrust trial. And this is a huge chink in the armor when you start comparing it to AI powered search. Google does not understand documents. It does not understand your blog post. It does not understand the information in your PDF. It does understand, it can search for keywords, for instance, but it doesn't understand it semantically the way that AI does. What Google is doing is tracking how you interact with it. So if you search for, and I keep using this example, so I'll just stick with it. Why do onions make me cry? And then you have 10 choices that come up. You click on the first one, you go to it, and you scroll through it, and you don't find the answer you're looking for, and you click back, and then you're back at the list, and then you click the second one, you go to the second one, you repeat this, say you go all the way down to the fifth or sixth one, till you finally find the bit of information that you're looking for. So you click on it, you go there, and then you stay there. You don't come back to the list anymore. Google recognizes that you did not find what you were looking for in those first 5 clicks. It so it monitors the way that you interact with the content more than it understands the content itself. This was, of course, a pretty big revelation in the uh, in the in the trial, because this is something that Google has tried to, we'll say, keep hidden for quite some time. That it When it was encouraging people to create content, and it would say, high quality content, this and that. Well, that was a that was a bit of a gaslighting exercise, really. So in the trial, they produced a couple of documents, and you can find them. Actually, we'll make sure to make all of these links that I have in the presentation. We'll make sure to make them available after it if you want to dig into it more. So this first one is, it shows the documents that Google put up in the trial that says, what we're actually doing is monitoring clicks here, and that's one reason why Chrome is so important. Chrome tracks your clicking activity and your link interaction activity. So if you have Chrome on, like I have an Android phone, so if I, using Chrome on my phone, using it on my desktop, Google knows everything that I click on, and it takes all that information to help it, with search. And then the second link here, that explains how all of Google's algorithms work. So when it first started, they used to use a thing called PageRank algorithm. And now, of course, it's evolved, but it explains how everything works. But since it doesn't semantically understand documents, and AI does, well, that's a problem. What happens when someone, they search a query, they click the link, they land on your website? That means you have a chance to convert them with whatever content that you've created. If they don't land on your website, you lose that opportunity. And this is how AI can put a dent into your sales. They don't actually have to go to your website to consume your content. That is a bit of an oversimplification, but it rings true. When you use a program like Perplexity, which let me see if I can just
So you're talking about. So I've noticed on the last couple of searches that I've done, there's been kind of like a summary at the top. Is that what you're talking about?
yes, I'm very glad you mentioned that. So, if I don't know how many people have actually seen this on Google because it's an opt in experiment. It started in May 2023. That is Google's Search Generative Experience, SGE.
Yeah.
And it's a generative AI summary that appears at the top of Google on the Google page that answers the question. Now, obviously, that's a big deal because they don't have to go to your website anymore. So
Well,
if you're
let me ask
good,
you this: is that response generated from like the top 10 on their search list, or is it just generated, or is it not even from that? It's just I guess.
no one really knows
Okay.
right now. It's still not. Uh, I just saw a list for casting movie that just pulled from the first blog link. Yeah, okay. So I just had a message that just posted and into the chat, and one of the attendees said they saw a list for cast in a movie that just pulled from the first blog link being pulled up. So in this particular case, it pulled from the very first link. But remember, Google has a tremendous amount of data in Google Index, and it also has one of the leading AI uh, LLMs on the market in Gemini. So it can, whenever you query it, or whenever you put something in Google, it has more than enough information where it can generate a response and put it on the page. Now, getting back to the title of the webinar, the reason why that could be a problem for all of our websites is because people don't have to go to our websites anymore to get the content. Um, with Perplexity, which is a competing software, uh, this is a search I did before, so I hope everyone can see that. So this is just telling me the history of coffee, and you can see the response down here. It's fairly lengthy, but Perplexity gives you all of the sources over here on the right.
Okay.
So I'm jumping a little bit ahead into the next slide, but with these sources, if you put quality content out there and then you do a couple of things that we'll cover momentarily, then your website is going to be listed in these sources. And Perplexity will say, this is where I got this information. So if you're the user, you can click on it and then you can go there and you will still get traffic to your website. However, it probably won't be the same amount because there's a second step. So if I'm the user, I put in this search and then Perplexity says, okay, here's your answer and here are my sources. Well, now I have to take another step to click on the source. And if I already have the information that I need, am I really going to do that? That's an open question at this point in time. And remember the three types of searches that we talked about before. No one's going to go to well, I'm not going to say no one. Most people aren't going to go to an AI like Perplexity or Gemini and put in YouTube and then wait for the YouTube link to pop up and then click it. Those navigational searches, that won't be a problem. But when it comes to these informational searches, there could be a real impact to the traffic on your website if you are dependent on getting traffic via Google. So the user experience is much, much different. The things that matter is clear, relevant content. The keyword stuffing, the listicle format, having grabby, attention getting link names, None of that's going to matter anymore. So if I could get traffic on a website by making a blog post called UT football coach fired and then advertising it, and people would click on it in Knoxville because it's an attention grabby, it's a
Right.
grabby headline. They'll be like, "Oh, he got fired," and then they would click on it and they would land on the blog. That's not going to work in AI powered search. Um, what will matter is the type of content that you create, having it be clear and easily understood, and having it supported by reputable sources. AI search likes authority, and again, I'll make sure to provide the sources for this information that I'm telling you right now. But AI search, Perplexity in particular, likes sources like chambers of commerce, accepted authorities in the world. Like I can't think of a better example than the World Health Organization or something like that. These institutions that have authority where your information essentially agrees with theirs, that will give your content it will make it more powerful when the AI is evaluating all of these sources. One big difference between AI and Google, Google is ranking these quantitative things, right? Like how many times this word appears, is it too many, is it not enough, yada yada yada. The When AI looks and it actually understands the content and what you're saying semantically, and it's going to compare it to other other sources. The more authority that those other sources have, if you're saying essentially the same thing, it will give you more authority. Essentially, you're standing on their brand strength. All right. So if you have a lot of institutions that say, this is X, Y, and Z, and whatever piece of content that you put out agrees with that, then you will inherit some of their authority effectively by having content that more or less falls in line. I don't know if that's the best illustration, but it really pays with AI to be ranked on or to be present on major indexes like chambers of commerce or like Yelp or things like that, where people typically accepted authority for information. Now, again, just to repeat, and this is probably a bit of an oversimplification, but still, people will no longer need to visit your website to get your content. As I just showed on Perplexity, there were 7 websites listed to the right that Perplexity used to generate that response, and I did not have to visit any of those websites to go get it. Now, I still had the option to do so, but it is no longer required. Google is very different. It's not giving you information, it's telling you where to get the information that you want. So you still have to click the link, you still have to land on the website, and you still have to consume the content at the source. Now, this doesn't mean that you should stop creating content, but it does mean that the quality of the content needs to increase. Use accepted indexes or authoritative indexes that we mentioned, Chambers of Commerce, Yelp, entrepreneur centers are probably another good one. Any institution like that where people will tend to collect and they'll list directories or whatever. Being listed on those directories help, and the more of them that you're listed on, the better.
So
The
is
current
that
method,
considered a backlink when you're listed on those directories?
yes and no. Effectively, it kind of works the same, but a lot of times with a backlink, like I could put a backlink to your company on Omega Digital Solutions, and Google currently would say, "Oh, well, there's a site pointing over there, so that means that site has more authority," whether I actually have that much or not, because it's kind of a collective impact from all of the people that you have pointing there. But
Um,
with AI is a little different because we're looking at a specific indexes, and it's not just who's linking there, but also where is it linked from.
So we're kind of at a 5 minute to the end, and so I just kind of want to throw up there anybody that's got any questions that they want Marcus to go ahead and answer. And while we wait for those questions to come in, Marcus, if you can just kind of wrap up, so what is it? What is it that we need to do differently in a nutshell to try and keep a hold of our sales or keep those people coming to our sites, I guess.
Yeah, to keep to minimize the impact of the traffic. Um, Make sure that your content is just excellent, clear content. The content is still king, but it's going to be quality of content. It's not going to be gaming for keywords or trying to rank for this word or that word or whatever. If you put out quality content, then the AI search engines will find it and it will use it. A
So
lot
can
of
you?
the
So let me stop you there. So when you talk about quality content, give us some examples of what quality content is.
so let's see, like if the way I would do things right now, like if I'm trying to get Omega to rank for software development, then I'm going to put out a blog post that might be something like 10 major software development mistakes and how you can avoid them. And I'll probably run a variation of that post for the next 3 months, right? And with a slightly different title, maybe slightly different wording, but more or less repetitive. With and that's to get a Google to find it. Am I really creating new information every single time? Probably not. It's going to be 80% of the same or 75% of the same information. It'll just be moved around a little bit. Um, with the with AI, I may not even I don't even have to use the list format. It could literally be in an essay format, right? So I don't have to have the 10 common mistakes or whatever. I could just say I could use a different title. I could use a whole different format for the thing for the blog post because the listicle the listicle format isn't going to have much of an impact. The second thing is if it's whatever I'm putting in that, whatever those 10 mistakes are, let's say, and one for Google, I'm going to put it all in one and I'm going to recycle the same thing. And for AI, I might just do a post I might go in detail on each of those 10 mistakes more and um, make 10 separate posts. The difference is the more detail you go into something, it'll be like long form content. AI can actually understand what you're saying. Google is just going to understand if people click on it and then click off again. What if you, with long form content, it can be hard to get people to read the entire thing. So that's why you go for the list and where it makes it easy for people to digest. With AI, that's not really a concern because it understands what you're trying to say. So long form content is more powerful than it would be. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that's helpful. Jake actually has a great question. So he's asking for something like best places to stay in Knoxville. What would be the best content to drive interaction?
Best places to stay in Knoxville. So that's really broad. Number one, I mean, are we talking about best places to stay
Well,
and
so
just
so so let me.
geographically, like in the
Yes.
city, or are we talking about best hotels, best Airbnbs?
Okay, so I know where he's coming from, and like I said, he's the owner of a Oakhaven resort here in Sevierville,
Oh,
and so he is just wondering, like his customers when they type in best places to stay in Knoxville, which must be a search result that he sees a lot in his Google Analytics. He's asking, what is the best way to try and get people to, um, you know, to for his website to come up more with that type of result.
okay. So there's going to be two things about that. One, best places for your website. Number one, generate long form content. That's going to be number one. Number two, People who go to AI to an AI engine they're more likely to be looking for information than they are going to be looking for something to buy. Transact because those are two different types of queries. You have informational versus transactional. Whatever your competitive advantages are relative to your competition, in whether it's in Knoxville, like the Knoxville metropolitan area, or in Sevierville or Sevier County, create long form content that describes those and why they're important, and go into detail about it, because with AI you don't have to worry about necessarily someone sitting there and reading the entire thing, but
So
you're making a source of information for the AI to use.
I think what I'm hearing is you're saying, let's write a blog post to put on the website that says the top 10 reasons why you should stay at Oak Haven Resort, for example. And
Or
then,
I would take the 10 reasons and make a blog post about each of them, and make it in more detail. Like, I would go for long form as opposed to
okay,
as opposed to making it for someone to quickly click through.
but
So,
you could start with the long one and then break out each of those questions on a weekly basis for the next 10 weeks.
absolutely.
Because so that's the one of the ways that you're talking about to attract attention.
Yeah, so using long form content, that's definitely one way. And
Okay.
then if someone is searching for the best cabin place, social proof is still going to be huge, because that's an authoritative thing. So the more reviews you can get of your cabins in more places, that will also give you authority. So Yelp, Google, Facebook, all the ones that you can think of, if you can generate reviews in those places, that will also be a good thing. So long form content, social proof.
Okay. All right. Well, we have drawn to the end, and I really appreciate the interactions that we've had today, and I appreciate your time, Marcus. Again, my name is Thomas, and I'm with CD Technology, and we take care of all your IT needs. And the very last thing that I want to do is normally we would just put a bunch of names in the hat and pull out a name, but I'm actually going to award Jake this time around because he was one of the few people that interacted with us throughout the time, and I appreciate the interaction. And so I'm going to award that. Jake, you're going to get you a $50 Aubrey's gift card to you here very soon for you to enjoy some lunch, and we appreciate everyone reaching out and the taking time to take a look at this information and how it could better your website. So with that said, Marcus, thank you so much for your time. And if anybody wants to rewatch this, we will have it posted on our website. And actually, Marcus is going to get a copy of this as well. Be sure to visit his website. Marcus, how do we find out more information about you again?
So you can find me on LinkedIn and Twitter at Marcus at Omega, spelled out exactly the way it sounds. And our website is omegadigital.us.
All right, perfect. All right. Well, thank you, everybody, and make it a great day. We'll see y'all later.